The What's the Crack podcast with Anthony Martin. Listen in live weekly on Brighton's Radio Reverb. See whatsthecrack.co.uk and radioreverb.com for showtimes.
This week's guest has his first autobiography out at the moment. It's called The Last Line, and you can get it in all good bookshops right now. This guy needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you 5 words and a piece of audio you might recognise. Ireland and Celtic goalkeeping legend.
And it's now Romania's second substitute, Daniel Timofte, Dynamo Bucharest, midfield player, to step forward. But the sequence now is that if he should miss this, and Ireland's last penalty taker should score, then the match of the progress are Ireland's. Timofte against Bonner. From Donegal has set it up for a victory.
On the phone with me right now, it's Packie Bonner. Hello, Packie.
Good afternoon, yes, and delighted to be on and talk to you.
Thanks very much. So yeah, it's your first autobiographies out at the moment. Now, a lot of football players these days, they tend to write their autobiographies at the age of 20. Not naming any names here, but why now for yourself? What made you decide to put pen to paper?
Well, it was something I thought I would never do, and to be honest, many people have asked me throughout my probably last 20 years would I put pen to paper and write down some of the stuff, and I thought I would never do it, and I didn't think I would do it, and I kind of promised myself that I would do it. Then Jerry McDade, the ghostwriter, Jerry, I went to Celtic Park. He was working in Celtic TV, and he started talking to me about it, and I said no. And then he talked to me again another time I was in, and I said no. And eventually he wrote the first couple of chapters and presented it one night. We were out at a gig somewhere, and he said, "Read that." And I liked the way he wrote it. I liked the way that it sort of and it was about my journey, and he captured the moment and at the start of it. And those actually the first chapter, so it hasn't really changed at all from what he actually wrote, which is quite amazing. Okay. They've changed a little bit in wording and so on, but in the sentiment of it, it's exactly the same. So that captured my imagination, and I wanted to write a story about a bit of a journey. Not having a go at anybody, not having set on old scores like a lot of these two and sensationalized things out of all proportion. I wanted to write the true story and have a bit of humour, a bit of emotion in it, and about a young man who had to leave Donegal and go on this journey and go to one of the biggest clubs, and then of course on to to follow his dream to play for his country, and the people along the way that affected me and made that journey happen, the good and the bad to a point, so it's come out very well. I'm delighted with the way it's turned out, and I think people who have said it to me that has read it enjoyed the read, so that's important.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, I read the book and it's fantastic. It's really good. The way it was different to normal football books. You kind of the heart of the story was something that our listeners will be familiar with, and that's emigrating and leaving their hometown behind. Was it difficult for you leaving Donegal and moving across to Scotland at such a young age?
It was. Well, I left when I was 18. That's not the norm in football terms most of the time. It was probably then, but not now when young guys have to leave when they're 15, 16. I left, but I was fairly naive to what the world was away from Donegal. Going into a city, we were brought up in the country right on the coastline in northwest Donegal, and to go over there, we didn't have the same telecommunications that you have now. We had no phone in the house. We had to travel by bus. When I went away, I got into a team pretty quickly, and that meant that I couldn't get home very, very often. And being away from home, missing your friends, your family, all of those type of things was traumatic for me. And because I was brought up in a very close-knit family with a twin brother, 5 sisters, and we were all in the house and having friends. And so that certainly affected me. And there was times, and I make no apology about it, and I wrote it in the book, that I cried myself to sleep on a number of occasions, missing home, and it got to me, when the pressures of football and city life and all of them things, when you can't go out and step into somebody's house, without making an appointment, that doesn't work for me, and at that time. So it took me a while. But I got over it, and it's a challenge. And like all of us that travel away from home, book, and I hope when you do read the book, they'll be reflecting a little bit on their own story and their own journey away from home and the things that had affect them. But then you have to meet the challenge and get on with it, and that's what I did,
Yeah. Now, I suppose you kind of moved I suppose it was a big move at the time and a big challenge when you moved. You were Jock Stein's last signing for Celtic. Were you a big Celtic fan growing up in Ireland?
Donegal Celtic was our Scottish club, of course, because the movement of people over and back to water was easier than going off to England or America or anything like that. There, so Scotland would have been first port of call for many, and they brought back all the stories about the great Celtic teams and so on. My next door neighbour had the picture up on the wall of the '67 team that won the European Cup. Even though I never watched them play, I could identify with them. And when I got the opportunity to go over there, I kind of knew a little bit of what I was getting into. I knew a bit of club, a little bit, and so on. But it still was huge. Walking in that first day, when Sean Fallon picked me up to go and to walk through the doors of Celtic Park, and he took me straight into the first team dressing room to meet all those guys. That was probably daunting. Daunting, and then it was an old, the stadium was old at the time, but it was huge, it wasn't in the most luxurious parts of Glasgow. It was over in the east end of Glasgow. It has changed dramatically around there now in the last probably the last 10 years. But during that time, it was the big tenement buildings. You drove in the back way in through all of those tenements, big sandstone buildings, and past the factories, and then up onto London Road, and up and into the car park and the old stadium, and then you walk through the door, and it was incredible, and I left the club in Donegal, KG Rovers. They were a junior team. We didn't have dressing rooms and KG at the time, and then you were walking in to play and train work, because the reserves and the first team trained at that time almost together, so. Yeah. Not alone, you were a young boy coming over, but you were actually out during my trial period there. I was almost training with the first team, and that was quite incredible too when you think back on it.
Yeah. As a young lad playing football then, what made you decide to be a goalkeeper? Because I suppose a lot of kids kind of want to score goals, I guess. What made you decide to go between the sticks?
Well, I did play at field. I played both sports, Gaelic and soccer. They were the only really two sports that was open to us, and I loved my Gaelic football too, and I was lucky to go on and play with the county levels. But I got a pain in the side at one time, and I dropped into goals, and I liked it. And when you have a twin brother at home and you're out in the country, you kind of almost play the game of one in, one out.
Yeah.
You're in goals and the other fella's shooting on you, and then you swap over. And I liked the feel of being in goals, making the saves, trying to emulate the great Pat Jennings and Peter Shilton and Ray Clemens and those guys that you watched on TV, and going out there trying to do that. So I enjoyed it, and I suppose once I realised I was half decent at it, and I suppose once the manager, or the guys that was playing what made me realise that I was half decent at it, that's where I went into. I had the luxury of playing Gaelic football, as I said, so I had my fix, I suppose, going out field by playing. I played midfield in Gaelic. So I could do that. Plus, then I was in goals and soccer, and both complemented each other, because we had to catch the ball, we had to get in among people. So that probably. And then when you get good at something and you're half decent, and you get started picked for a few teams. We didn't start competitive football really until we were about 15, 16, and then suddenly you get picked for Donegal youth team, and then you go for trials for the Irish youth team, and you get an opportunity and you're picked. Wow, that's where you're going to stay, and goals, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's worked out well for you. It's worked out well.
Yeah, it worked out great. Yeah, absolutely.
What's the Crack with Anthony Martin on Radio Reverb 97.2 FM.
Now, you talk in the book about putting a pair of football boots on as a child for the first time, it being a seminal moment. As a proud Irishman living in Scotland, do you remember kind of a similar moment when you put on the Ireland jersey as a senior team member for the first time?
Yeah, well, I went away. My very first time I went away was away with the 1979 team. Johnny Giles was the manager, and he picked me to go to France. I went there really as a young man. I didn't go there as probably a full-time squad member. It was kind of almost, I don't know why he picked himself and John Devine. We were two young kids, but he brought us, and we were in along the side, the Steve Highways and the Mickey Walshes and the Don Gibbons and the Ray Tracys and that guy, training with them. So I trained with them. I wasn't in the team as such. I then probably made my debut in 1981, away to Poland and Bydgoszcz, and that was the first time I pulled on the Irish jersey as a first team member.
Player,
I had youth caps, and I had under 21 caps. I remember playing down in Anfield against Liverpool in an under 21 game. So you had that feeling, but you always wanted to. You, as a young guy, you watched Ireland play, and I remember watching them play many times, and you had that little dream inside your head that, wow, if I'm going to be a professional player, then I want to play for my country. And when it happens, it's quite incredible. Now, we got beaten that game against Poland. It was my 21st birthday, but I don't care about the result. I just know that it was the start of my career. And on one hand was the manager, and he gave me the opportunity. And from there on, I didn't play that many games. I only played about 9 games after that until 1986, until Jack took over. So he was a man that sort of changed things for me a little bit.
You've got high praise from him in the book as well. You said he's the best manager you've ever played under.
As a man manager,
yeah.
I wouldn't put him down as a coach. He wouldn't be in the world of coaching the way Tommy Burns maybe or those guys were. But as a man manager and a guy who, gave me huge confidence. I was probably the only one up in Scotland that was playing in that Irish team when we started off. The rest were all down in England. And when you're a lad from Donegal and you're up in Scotland playing, you feel, wow, will I ever get a chance to be in this team and be one of the main players? And Jack gave that to me. I don't know why, because, maybe I thought he might have went with some of the other lads down in England, but he didn't. And he had a brilliant, fantastic way of communicating with people, and that's something that certainly I would love to have bottled up some way and be a rich man now if I could have, because he got into the hearts and minds of people, even people who never knew him. You go back down the country and you go into, after it was all over competitions, I would go home to Donegal and I would meet people, old people, people who weren't really into soccer, but they were into Jack. They knew Jack and they loved Jack, and they wanted to hear stories about him and different things, and that was wonderful. And he had a brilliant way of getting the group together, almost like a group family, club team, and that was unique. That definitely was unique, and I think that one of the big changes he made was very quickly when he went into it that he wouldn't let anybody leave the team hotel once they checked in on whether it was a Sunday. Normally it was a Sunday, and we went and did everything together. Before that, in the past, the players might have trained and went off to see their families on a Monday or whatever and come back in for dinner that night. Now, Jack changed all that. He made sure all of us was part of it. Everything we did it together, and that just helped us dramatically.
Yeah. So you created a lot of camaraderie in the team.
Yeah, camaraderie, and we all actually get on very well. We're not best buddies. Some of us are closer to others because we played with teams together. Like and of course he brought me in as a coach, but we played together at Celtic. Jerry Payton was my roommate. So those are the ones that I would probably phone and talk to even more often than the others. The rest I meet every so often. Meet Ray Hout and Ronnie and all of those guys when I go and do my punditry stuff with and Irish games and so on. And it's lovely, and we have a pint together, and we were having a few pints after the great result the other last month when Ireland qualified, and we celebrate those moments as much as our own moments, and that was good, and we had a great reunion and anniversary of 1988 team, the media brothers all back to Dublin, and there was a good group of us there, and the wives came over too, and we had a wonderful time talking and remembered old stories. It was great.
We've qualified for the World Cup. Go and compete.
Now you mentioned about Jack and the team capturing the public's imagination. The 1990 World Cup, I suppose it doesn't get any bigger than that, does it? Especially after those penalties. How did it feel coming back to the jubilation in Ireland at the time?
It was unbelievable. That I suppose that tent captured the imagination of everybody, and that was unique also in the sense that, everybody in Ireland for me was united, whether you were a Gaelic supporter, player, rugby player, supporter, soccer or boxing or whatever it was, old, young, everybody was in it, and they all were celebrating, which was quite a unique situation also. And then when you come back to Ireland after, and we didn't win anything, we just got to a quarter final. Yeah. But when you have 500,000 people in Dublin, that was incredible, absolutely incredible. And the journey from the airport into central of Dublin that day, we will never forget it. But precarious at times, I must admit, but it showed the emotion on people's faces, and people were up in, windows and third floors and looking out windows, and guys on lampposts, and and it was incredible, the emotion on everybody, because people now, I talk to people a lot. I go and I talk to people a lot, and they still remember them days, and they'll tell you during the penalty shootout where they were, who they were, what they were doing. They'll tell their own story too. And when you catch people's imagination and emotions in that way, then I think it sticks with them for the rest of their life. There's a new, younger generation now, of course, they don't remember it, but they do remember because of the mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers showed them the videos and tell them the stories. And it's nice to have that. It's nice to be appreciated. So for us, it was magnificent to be part of it. And it's just a pity we couldn't have been in both places, Ireland and in Italy and so on at the same time. And that's it. But coming back, I was fortunate then. I had to come back to Donegal, and coming back to your own place, I think, is a wee bit more special than anything. And there was thousands of people there, and I write about it in the book and trying to paint the picture of that, and that was fairly emotional for me, I must admit. Something that I was back in Donegal this week, and we had a little celebration of the book, and there was a lot of those people, a lot of them gone now, unfortunately, but there was others who were young people at that time, and I get a little bit old like myself, and they were all there to celebrate and enjoy it. So we had a good night. So it's nice to relive it at times.
Yeah. And I suppose the 1994 World Cup in the US then, that was a different kettle of fish, I guess. Did you feel a lot of pressure?
Yeah.
Did you feel a lot of pressure on the team, kind of given what happened in 1990?
I think the expectations were higher, or the expectations were there that we should at least do what we did before. But then the conditions were so dramatic, being down in Orlando, and I think we were actually hijacked a little bit and imagine putting an Irish team down into Orlando when it was 130 degrees inside the stadium, and we were playing Mexico, and of course playing Mexico, who didn't even look as if they were sweating on the day, and we had to go out against them, and we were never going to thrive in that. We were lucky. We actually did it supremely well to beat Italy and get out of our group. That was probably as good achievement when you think about it in those conditions than what we did in Italy and that. But the expectations are that you want to go to another quarter final or even get on and do better. We had younger players coming in now. We had Roy coming in, Steve Staunton, now one of those guys were emerging. Great players. We still had the Gary Kelly, Phil Babb, Jason McAteer, other ones were coming in on the scene. So we did a new group emerging also, all good players. But we just could never do, I don't think, and we couldn't enjoy it as much, because of those conditions. I certainly didn't enjoy it. I talk about it a lot in the book about how it affected me emotionally and that, So
yeah, you need your factor Irish over there, I guess, in that kind of heat, don't you?
Yeah. Well, listen, I've spoke to people in New York, for example, and walked in and they couldn't stick the heat. We were actually thought New York was quite compared to what it was down in Orlando. There was a guy, and I write about it in the book, he went into the Orange Bowl and he burned himself on the seat with a pair of shorts on when he sat there on the seat. He burned himself, scalded himself. So, and that was the immense heat that was down there, So for us Irish guys, we were struggling in that, Yeah, absolutely, big time,
Now, having played in 3 of Ireland's 5 big football tournaments, how do you think Martin O'Neill and the lads will do next year in the Euros?
We don't know. Actually, that's the problem. We're never sure because we don't have the caliber player probably, or they're not playing with the top clubs. that we wear. So you're never 100% sure. They have to find themselves, like we had to do probably in our competitions at the start to build up that confidence. The first game, absolutely crucial. And any time that we went to a tournament and Jack's Day, that first game, beating England, for example, not getting beaten against England and Sardinia, beating Italy in the first game in '94, you have to do that. You have to get a result in that game. And then if you look back to 2012 European Championship, we got beaten that first game, and then the confidence goes down. And the other problem for an Irish team is that you have to play 100% to get results now all the time. We have to have a good structure about this, but everybody has to almost perform. And if you get a couple of heroes in the team too, maybe the goalkeeper, maybe the way Paul played, for example, in '94 World Cup against Italy, somebody who was going to come out as a top player. So you need people to perform, and you need us to be at it right from the first and get that result. And then anything can happen. Martin and Roy, especially Martin, he's the leader. He's the man that has to make the big decisions. And he's the one that has to, and I think he's enjoying it a lot more now. That's and getting qualification is taking the monkey off his back.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
But they have to get a result, you know.
So, what do you miss most now about not being in the professional game?
Well, I'm lucky that I'm still involved in football and in many capacities. I do work with BBC up in Scotland, and I go to all the games, and it's more to get me out to watch the games. So I do. You have to call it at times too, and that can upset a few people because you have to talk about what actually happens on the pitch. And I do a lot of the Celtic games, but I'm also involved heavily with UEFA, and I travel around throughout Europe doing coach education and looking and helping the countries to roll out their UEFA goalkeeping badges. And that's really interesting, really, really interesting, because you're going into different cultures, you're dealing with different people, you're networking, you're trying to help. Language is also an issue at times you've got to overcome. And that's why I really, really enjoy that side of it. I do work for a company actually that sends young teachers, takes young teachers over to London area from Ireland and Canada and Spain, a company called UTeach. They've asked me to come in to be an ambassador. And that's interesting because there's, again, young people having to go away from home, having to set up their own life in a different country. And I talk to them about my experiences and what the challenges are and what they need to do. And we help them in the whole, it's almost like developing their career and developing themselves as people, to be away for a couple of years, make sure they're supported well, all the things are in place to help them develop, and then they come back to Ireland, hopefully, and get that job that they crave for, which isn't quite there at times, you know. So that's interesting work for me, and I enjoy doing it, and I go back over to Ireland to do many things too. So it's a full on. Sometimes I would like to have more time back at home in Donegal to enjoy my house and put the feet up and walk the beaches and do all the things that I crave for, that we all crave for at times. But life must go on, and we can blend it all together, and life's still good.
Yeah, speaking of Donegal, finally, there was a survey this year done by a website called slicedpan.com. I don't know if you saw this.
No.
But they were looking for the sexiest accent in Ireland, the nicest county accent in Ireland, and Donegal won actually.
There you are. That must be Daniel. Then it must be Daniel or somebody of that nature. And that.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Apart from Donegal, which would you think? Which is your favourite county accent in Ireland?
Oh my word! That's a really, really good question. Now, you know, I would say Cork, but I don't understand the Cork people at times. I really don't understand us. I don't know. I was fortunate actually when I took the technical director's job in Ireland to travel around Ireland. I didn't get that opportunity for many times, and I travelled around and I went to places that I thought I would never be, and the people were fantastic. And that, and to pick, now you're putting me on the spot here, to pick somebody out or an accent out in all them great places would be very, very unfair. I'm a northwest man, the west of Ireland, I do like, and I like the people there on that side. So, but listen, I'm not going to answer that one. I'll sit very much on the fence on that one. But listen, when you're away from home and you're living in a different country, when you travel around Europe and the world, and you're on a plane and you meet somebody and you talk to them and they're an Irish accent, then that doesn't and that's the best you can get, you know.
Yeah, that's a lovely diplomatic answer, Packie. I love it. I absolutely love it. Best of luck with the book. It's out now. It's called The Last Line, and it's available in all good bookstores in the UK, Ireland, and across the world as well. So thanks very much, Packie, for talking to us.
Thank you for being part of the journey too. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.